Right, let's have a look at how we set up the measurement system for the Brot. It can be complicated if you let it, but I've worked out a basic approach which, is all that's needed, and really, it's quite simple. It's quite simple. So if we have a closer look at our measurement bar, per se, on the far right is what's called an eccentric wheel. And you'll see markings from 0, we'll move in a bit closer, to coming to 6. But what this eccentric wheel does, let me push it around. It travels in an eccentric way, but there's a bar attached to it, and that is attached really to the ratcheted wheel. Now, what happens, I'm going to sit down here, is when you set the eccentric wheel to one of these numbers equate to how many micron you're going to take off in a grind as you send the grinding wheel forward onto the samples. So, on a number 1 setting, that is a 5 micron grind. 5 micron grind. And that is sending that message to the ratcheted wheel. And that ratcheted wheel progresses forward by a feeding pawl system. And it tells the ratcheted wheel to just progress by 1 tooth. Now we call this the nodding duck. So when we start the machine up, it's just going to send that wheel, the grinding wheel, forward by 1 duck or 5 micron. That's all there is to it. Now, let's go back. If we were to set for a coarse grind, we would put the eccentric wheel on 3. Now that means it's going to do a 15 micron. These are increments of 5 microns each. We run our coarse wheel on a 15 micron grind, which tells the ratcheted wheel to move forward the grinding wheel onto the samples by 3 teeth, thereby taking 15 micron on each pass of the sample. What I've done is I've made you a little crib sheet to explain that process more fully. But in reality, the other big thing to remember is this ratcheted wheel, when sent in a full revolution, is equal to 1,000 microns. A 1,000 micron grind of the samples, or a 1 millimeter grind of the samples. So if you come over, I'm going to laminate this explanation so that you can put it on the wall of your lab to remind you of how this works. The last thing to set, however, is the little micrometer. So we're going to talk about setting up for glass. Now, the top of the micrometer, those are increments, or we should say to the right rule, those are the millimeter increments. To the left rule, those are half millimeter increments. Now we get glass which is supposed to be 3 millimeter. So you read the micrometer and it is saying 3 mil. But I know from measuring by hand with a micrometer that our glass really comes at 2.90 millimeter. So what I'll do is I'll find 3 on the top rule, and then I'm going to grind past, and I grind to 2.75. Now remember, we just went past 3, so it's 2 millimeter on the top rule plus 50 plus 25.25. And that's going to make our glass 2.75 to stop. Now, hopefully that's going to make sense, but when we do our glass, which is what we're going to run next, you'll also get it visible because we're going to mark our glass with X's, and we're going to watch on the micrometer when they grind. But remember, it all works together. So glass is always run on a 5 micron grind set on your eccentric wheel, which tells the ratcheted wheel to progress by 1 nod of the duck, or 1 tooth, which is 5 micron, and it's going to send that grinding wheel on a 5 micron forward progress onto your glass or your sample. Now, the micrometer is set for stopping. What is your stop point? You're looking at 3, but oftentimes, because I've run glass so much, I know my glass is 2.90, and I send it down to 2.75 to get a nice satin finish on the surface of the glass. So that is your measurement system. The next thing we're going to do is once we've set this system up, I'll show you how to turn the machine on and what the look of the nodding duck or the feeding pawl system looks like. Right.